Check Podcasts.
Hi, I'm Bruce Williams. I'm the CEO of the Greater Victoria Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to Chamber Chats, coming to you as always right here in the podcasting studios of the Czech Media Group, one of our chamber champions. I would like to begin, as always, by acknowledging the Lekwungen-speaking peoples in whose territories we all live and work, or I do anyway. They are known to us, of course, as the Songhees and Esquimalt nations. Chamber Chats is made possible by the support of Island Savings, a division of First West Credit Union, with a team of experts with answers as unique as your business. So, we're going to talk today about something that's known for the big woolly mammoth. It's known for Oldtown. It's known for the collection of totems. It's known for John Lennon's funky psychedelic Rolls-Royce limousine. All of those things, of course, are a part of the Royal BC Museum. The RBCM is a huge part of our culture in this region and for the entire province, too. We're going to talk about the museum and where some of the processes in play are at right now. Joining me to do that today are the acting CEO, Tracy Drake. Tracy, how are you?
I am very well, Bruce. Thank you for having us.
And Leslie Brown is the board chair of the Royal BC Museum. Leslie, how are you?
I'm great. Nice to meet you, Bruce.
You too. So a year and a half ago, I was actually at the announcement that Premier John Horgan made on May the 13th that talked about some changes coming to the Royal BC Museum, in particular to the actual physical location, to the building itself. So it's been over a year since an announcement about those changes. Ongoing process since then, and there's been some changes in what's been going on. So Leslie, I'll start with you as the board chair. What sort of things are happening in this process now?
Well, there's lots of good things happening. We were, like many others, disappointed about the project going forward, but gave us the opportunity to rethink some things and to reimagine how we wanted to go forward and to talk to British Columbians about what they wanted. So it actually turned out to be a really positive thing for us. And we've been going around the province and talking to people. And once we hear from British Columbians, we'll have a sense of where we go next.
Tracy, yeah, that process has been ongoing with the staff and the curators and everybody at the museum, too. Tell me about them.
It's interesting, Bruce, that initially I think there was a lot of disappointment that the project was canceled. But one of the things that occurred that I think was surprising to all of us was this rare opportunity to reimagine who we are as a provincial museum. And I think the team has really embraced that work. In fact, we're busier now than we've ever been in the history of the museum. We have a full house of exhibitions. Angkor, I think most people need to see, but Sue the T-Rex has certainly been the real headline stealer for this season. And then Dinosaurs of BC, which in fact features Buster, which is a dinosaur, a rare dinosaur that was found right here in British Columbia. So there's a lot happening within the museum, and it's not just sort of what the exhibitions are bringing to the table, but IMAX, and then also how we reimagine things from a learning perspective, from a community engagement perspective, and what we do with our communities in and around our province.
Yeah, and who doesn't love dinosaurs? Tell me that. Who doesn't
For
love
real.
it? Absolutely, yeah. Leslie, you mentioned about the consultations going on around the province. We, of course, were encouraging people to be involved in that process. The engagement was quite profound, you said, though, right? People were really, really interested in this.
People were really interested. People love the museum. They want to love the museum. They really want it to be a place where they can come, bring their kids, their grandkids. I bring my great grandkids here. We just have it's a place, it's a community hangout place for those of us who live in Victoria. And for people who are outside of Victoria, it's a place to come and bring your family and your visiting friends. And everybody has a warm spot for the museum as a place that holds our collective history. So yeah, it's a great place.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, the IMAX theater is there. There's a lot happening on that site. It's actually one of the larger event venues, too. We were there recently with something called Colorful Business. So in the process of all of this change, Tracy, let's kind of unpack one little part of that. Is there still a plan going forward to take the building down or do some physical structural change?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I can answer that in this way is that we don't know what our way forward is in terms of what will come with the building. What we do know is we need to hear from British Columbians. And so this month we are in November, we're heading out onto the road in phase 2 of an engagement. And we are asking what British Columbians see, what they want to see in their provincial museum. But we are also asking the questions around the physicality of the museum, the downtown site. What do British Columbians see as their museum? And so it's still a work in progress. And if we heard anything in 2022, we heard that British Columbians want to be part of the process. They want to help us to determine where we go from here, and how we truly become a provincial museum that serves all British Columbians.
Yeah, the historic importance of it is in place right now. The cultural importance is there.
Mhm.
It's also, let's not forget, it's a huge economic driver for this region because
It
of
is.
all the people that like it's a huge destination point for people getting off the ferries and driving into town, and school kids from across the province come here on trips to experience this whole thing. Leslie, can you talk a little bit about what some of the options are for next steps at this point?
Well, for now, as Tracy says, we're going around the province and we're completing the second phase of our community engagement to figure out what's next. We're maintaining the current building that we've got. We're making sure that it's safe, and that we can hold and the exhibitions that we want to, and host people and do those kinds of things. So we're paying attention to all of that, and we're focusing on the building of the new collections and research building out in Colwood, which is really exciting. And that's going to be a place that's going to, I know I've heard Tracy talk about it as a window into the collection. People are going to be able to come and see the researchers working and working with artifacts and belongings, and children and adults are going to be able to see kind of behind the screen of a museum and how it works. And so a lot of the collection will move out there. So a lot of our attention right now is looking at packing up things, making sure they're fit to be moved and where they're going to go and that sort of stuff. So we're really quite excited about the opportunities that the new collections and research building will bring us.
Yeah, that's at Royal Bay out in Colwood. When we talk
Yes,
also about the safety of the building and stuff, this was a building that was built when people thought asbestos was okay, and things
that's
like
true.
right and things like seismic upgrades weren't really talked about that much. So, Tracy, tell me where we're at on that with the concerns about the asbestos, seismic, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, the one thing I say is that when the project was canceled, the issues surrounding the building exist. They were not imagined. They are real. So we do have issues with an aging infrastructure, with an envelope that is leaking, and those kinds of things. We're not unique in the province. I think we've learned that over the last few years. There's lots of organizations that are having similar challenges. One of the things that we do know is that we will need a plan to address those issues in the coming years. Um, However, what we are doing is making sure that our continued maintenance program is diligent and it is regular. We do testing all of the time. It's super important that we are assuring our visitors and our staff, everyone that enters the building, that we're a safe place to come and visit. But the issues exist, and they are issues that we will have to manage as the years go on.
So, it's a home to historic icons, articles, artifacts, things like that. Also, prehistoric stuff is there too, which we'll talk about
Yes.
in a second here. We felt it very appropriate for us at the Chamber to celebrate our 160th anniversary, oldest chamber in Western Canada, by holding a reception event at the Royal BC Museum. And that was tons of fun for all the people that were there. Now, part of the process that's been going on is the return of Indigenous artifacts. I was actually witness to one of those events happening not too long ago. I want to talk about that next. Chamber Chats today, we are talking about the Royal BC Museum and what are the next steps in the history of that historic organization. Talking with us today, Tracy Drake, the acting CEO of the RBCM, and Leslie Brown is the board chair of the Royal BC Museum. So, Tracy, I was there the day that one of the totems was removed and taken back to its original home. First of all, tell me about that day. The emotion was palpable. Tell me about that.
What an incredible day. What an incredible day for the New Hulk Nation, for the museum, but also for the work that we're doing as we move forward in terms of repatriation. And there's so much happening. So repatriation is something that is a priority for the museum. It is part of our provincial mandate as well. And the teams are working really diligently with communities on a number of things. The repatriation piece in terms of returning ancestral artifacts is one piece of it, but then also working with communities so that they were actually able to take the belongings back into their communities. And I think that's a bigger piece than a lot of people realize.
That whole repatriation thing, Leslie, is a part of the DNA of the structure that's going to be putting all of this in place as the museum moves forward and the return of some of these artifacts. But again, a lot of moving parts in that. And tell me about some of the strategies that have gone into that.
Well, we're currently working with, I believe it's about 30 nations and communities to return belongings or artifacts or ancestors to them. And I think we've got about another 10 applications that are being reviewed currently. Um, we've always kind of been passive in that way of when a community wanted something back, we would work with them. And we're hoping to move towards being more reaching out and saying, we've got these things. Let's work together and figure out, do you want them to return? Do you want us to care for them? What's the best way of going forward? Following the lead of the nations whose belongings they are to say, how do we want to proceed with this? So as our capacity allows, we are going to be working with any nation that wishes to, and we'll be reaching out to them to figure out what's the best thing to be done. And I think it's part of our commitment to the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People and to our relationships with Indigenous peoples across the province.
Yeah, I mentioned that our chamber is the oldest chamber of commerce or board of trade in Western Canada. The Royal BC Museum is the oldest archival institute west of the Great Lakes in Western Canada. I've done some research. That's what
You
I do.
have.
I do research. So let me tell you this. Within the archive, just let this soak in for a minute. There are 5 million photographic images. There are 72,000 library books, 180,000 maps and plans and architectural records. There are 90,000 boxes of government records, 27,000 audio recordings, 20,000 private community and business record boxes, 20,000 boxes. 10,000, just over 10,000 paintings, drawings, and prints, and 12,600 items of film and video. That's a lot of stuff in that collection. Can we start talking, first of all, about the art? Tell me about the art that's in the collection, Tracy.
Yeah, it's such an interesting conversation because I think that a lot of people don't realize that BC Archives holds an important and not well known art collection. I mean, the Vancouver Art Gallery we didn't open until the 30s, and the Art Gallery of Greater Victoria, which I think we're all familiar with, didn't open until the 50s. So until then, it was the BC Archives that was the primary place for artworks of significance in this province. So that's really interesting just in itself. And then thinking about how the collection has grown through accession and through donation. Certainly the most significant collection that we hold is the Emily Carr collection, which we're all in love with. I mean, I think everyone in this province just has a great love for that particular collection, and just a wealth of paintings, drawings, and other pieces that are held within the collection. And it's something that we're doing significant work on in terms of looking at new opportunities to enhance and expand the art collection of BC Archives.
Yeah. Now, Leslie, I don't want this to seem like an overly simple question. Like, for example, when Amanda and I travel, we're museum nerds. We go to art galleries. We do that kind of stuff. What is the importance of a museum? Why do RBCMs of the world exist? What's the reason for them?
Oh, I think museums have a huge role to play in helping us know who we are, where we've come from, who we are today, and where we're going as individuals, as communities, as families, as neighbors, in our place in the world, and our relationships with not only other people but with the land and with the trees and with the mammals and it really the climate. So I think museums are a wonderful place to give us a sense of who we are and help us think about where we've been and where we want to go in the future.
Yeah, you got to know where you've been before you know where you're going, right?
Absolutely.
So, Tracy, I want to talk about the bugs. I want to talk about the birds. I want to talk about the ants. There's just this whole cool collection of things in the natural history collection.
Yes.
We are people of fish. The indigenous peoples here, we're fish people. We're surrounded by water and fish. There's an amazing fish collection.
There's an incredible fish collection. I mean, fish, bugs, insects. If that's your jam, this is the place where you need to be. And I honestly, the collections are so large, especially with the smaller insects in entomology, where there are millions and millions of specimens. And this last year, our curator of entomology went out on a field trip into the interior BC and found more than 40 new species just of flies. I mean, it is interesting that the expert teams that we have on staff here and the passion that they bring to their work is really um, it's it's just admirable. It's exceptional, and the fact that this province continues to evolve and that we continue to find these new species, not just in bugs and insects, but across the collections and across the disciplines.
Yeah, it's funny, that very often in real life, in real time, bugs kind of freak people out, but when you see them in a museum, you're fascinated. You get right up
Yeah.
close and you look at them. But that's a great way to study our ecosystem and what's going on. Ornithology. Leslie, birds. A lot of us are bird people. We love birds, but there's such a huge collection of that too. Tell me about that.
Oh yes, we've got all kinds of birds, and I'm not much of a bird person, but I get fascinated when I go in and I look at all the bird things that we've got, and it gives us again a sense of past, present, and future of the effect of climate on birds, and yeah, it's pretty wonderful.
A museum is a place where you can see a bird up close. And that's when you see that the actual magic of their markings and the feathers and the colors. And it's spectacular to see that. Okay.
The colors are amazing.
Yeah. So we've talked about various times in history. I want to talk about prehistory or prehistoric. Yes, we're going to do that next. We're talking with the Royal BC Museum folks today on Chamber Chats. Tracy Drake is the acting CEO, and Leslie Brown is the board chair of the Royal BC Museum. So fossils, Tracy, the term is prehistoric, but it's kind of before recorded history.
It truly is.
You got a ton
It
of that,
truly
and the
is.
story it tells. But tell me about the fossil collection, the
Yeah,
paleontology.
interesting. I was thinking about, the fact that our paleontology collection houses more than 100,000 fossils that span over 500 million years. You just have to stop and sort of feel the gravity of that span. And also, I think a lot of people may not know that we serve as the provincial repository as well, for fossils that are collected under permit in BC. So quite a big job and quite a big responsibility to continue to do that work. Um, Ice Age mammoths, part of our collection. Um, Wooly is the famous one. Of course, he's more of a prop than he is an artifact, but beloved just the same. Dr. Arbor, who is our in-house dinosaur paleontologist expert, said to me this morning that make sure you talk about our one-of-a-kind dinosaur, because she was part of the initial group that really looked into why are we finding dinosaur fossils in British Columbia, because it was unheard of. And so Buster, who is part of the Dinosaurs of BC, which is on at the museum right now, is a brand new relative of the Triceratops and is known as a Ferrosaurus.
Hmm.
Like something sounds right out of the Flintstones, I have to say.
Yeah.
But he's a lovable creature, and I know that one of the best things that one of the best memories that young and young at heart take from this museum when they come to visit right now. He's really a spectacular specimen.
And some of the fossils reflect, again, this prehistoric period of what plant life was like. And it's kind of fascinating.
Yes.
Yeah, it's fascinating, Leslie, to go back and see that there are plants that were around in that prehistoric period that are still around now, but there's some that aren't too, right?
Yep. They give us a real window into our past and our long ago past. 227,000 catalog specimens of plants from BC that are here in the museum. And they get used a lot by not only to look into the past, but people who are interested in like invasive species and what might be happening to our forests and whatever come and study what we have so they can figure things out. So it's a very well used collection that has a lot of application today to how we manage our forests and our lands and looking towards the future.
Yeah, there would be no fossils of Scotch broom, for example. Give that some thought. And how much has that changed the island and the province that we have this broom that's so
Absolutely.
invasive?
Yeah, huge.
So the museum is a place to learn. We can learn by walking around and looking at the displays and reading the information that's adjacent to that. But you can do more than walk through the exhibits, right? Tracy, tell me about what those learning experiences are.
Yeah, that was such an interesting thought when I was thinking about that, because one of the things I think about is why we're here. What do we do? And truly, the museum, it really exists to explore and preserve BC's human and natural history in all of its diversity and all of its splendor. And yes, that is exhibitions and how we present to the public, but it's also collecting and it's research and it's the sharing as well. But we also exist to inspire curiosity. I talk about curiosity with the teams all the time. And that's where the learning programs come in, things that we do through the education system, through community groups, seniors, cultural groups, traveling exhibitions. That's something we started a few years ago and now has really taken off in a way that allows us to to almost bring satellite museum installations across the province. That's significant to the work that we do and how we affect the province as a whole. So, and all of that really speaks to sort of that inclusive storytelling as well, and how we speak to our history and how we engage new generations as well. That's a big part of the responsibility of a provincial museum, is to really spark that excitement and that curiosity.
Yeah, take the collection to the people, isn't it? Just not just the people coming to the collections. That's for sure.
Exactly.
Okay, so Leslie, as these next steps, when the folks hit the road and go talk to people about this, what can we all do to support these transitions and changes that are ahead? What do we as the citizens? What can we do?
Well, first off, you can get involved in any community engagement activities that are in your area, wherever you are, and give us some feedback onto what we're doing and where we should be going and how we're going to move forward together. There's also come to the museum, go to our website and follow some things that are going on there. Volunteer. Oh, we just rely on volunteers so much. So go to our website, rbcm.ca, and look under engage, and you can apply to be a volunteer, where you could be a greeter, or you could work with collections, or there's lots of different ways to support us at the museum. And we want to do it together with British Columbians. So please come and help us out.
Great. Okay, a couple of quick questions, Tracy. What's the status of Oldtown? Oldtown is new again, or it's been updated a little bit, right?
Yeah, I would say Oldtown has been reimagined in a first phase. There will be more to come. I think what we're hearing is that people are thrilled that Oldtown is reopened. Really excited to be back on the cobblestone streets. And if you come to visit, what you will see is an Oldtown that has some new context in terms of making sure we are looking at the diversity of history and telling a more fulsome story.
Here's a picture I took of John Lennon's funky psychedelic Rolls Royce. And when would we get the chance to see that again, Tracy?
I don't know, that car, people love that car.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because if you know the history of that car, just in terms of how how it came to be, first of all, with Jimmy Pattison, and how we approved it and brought it into the collection. That's a really interesting story in itself. I don't know when we're going to see it again. Moving that car is a bit of
Oh,
a
yeah.
beast,
I'll bet.
and so it's still in the collection. It's still a beloved piece of the collection, and we'll certainly look to how we can do that in the future.
Great. I look forward to that. Thank you both for being here. Again, the website is rbcm.ca. Check it out about the collections and the exhibits and how you can be a volunteer. Tracy Drake is the acting CEO of the Royal BC Museum, and Leslie Brown is the chair of the board. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks,
Thanks so
Bruce.
much.
I'm Bruce Williams. We'll see you again for another Chamber Chat.